Hey folks, and welcome back to West Yorkshire Retro Gamer. I thought I'd do a video for a bit of fun today. So I have come up with 5 of the most almost impossible, extremely improbable, virtually no chance of these things occurring this season, in my opinion. Oh, this is going to be a fun one. Before we start, take all these with a pinch of salt, please. I think there's about as much chance of these happening as there is of me getting rich. Alright, so one or two of them are a little bit less impossible than others. And obviously nothing's impossible in a sense, but you'll see what I mean as we go through. So, let's start with the first one. This one is controversial, in my opinion, based on what's happened in the last 2 seasons in the Premier League. Okay. No drop for Leeds United, Burnley and Sunderland. Is there any remote chance whatsoever that all 3 of the newly promoted teams could actually survive this season? Any at all? Leeds United scoring 95 goals last season. Burnley only conceding about 20. Sunderland with their youthful, unpredictable squad and relatively fresh manager with new ideas. Certainly new to the Premier League, if you like, even if now not new to England. Is there any chance? Like, I have a heart over head opinion that Leeds might actually finish 17th this season, but it's extremely unlikely. Leeds finished with the second best defence in the championship last season, but still conceded a lot more than Burnley. I think Burnley conceded 20 and Leeds conceded 30 or something, roughly speaking. Both defences were absolutely insanely good. Leeds just 5 goals off scoring 100 goals along with their 100 points. And then Sunderland just somehow putting a stake through the heart of the Blades, Sheffield United, who in theory had a very similar season to what Leeds had the season before, where they scored a lot of points but still failed to get the top 2 and then failed to go up automatically or even by the playoffs, sorry. So, is there any chance? I mean, would any bookmakers actually allow you to put a bet on to say that all 3 of them stay up? I mean, the return must be a 4-figure sum. You must get at least £1,000 back, surely. I don't know how the bookies and odds work, but I mean, surely it couldn't happen, could it? That all 3 stay up. I mean, the last 2 seasons, the newly promoted teams have all come straight back down. And if anything, the odds are going to be the same for these 3 as well, purely because the gulf that the regular 17 of the last 2 seasons is just getting bigger and bigger, aren't they? Those top 17 are getting way too comfortable. Because it ain't just the fact that it's the same 17 that survived, it's the points gap between 17th and 18th. It was 13 points last season, just between Leicester and Tottenham. Crazy stuff. So yeah, I don't think there's a hope in hell that all 3 stay up. And my hope that my team, Leeds United, stays up is far more based on heart than head. if Leeds can somehow get the recruitment right, then they have the slimmest of chances. But they're also relying on one of the other teams being absolute poop. And I'm not entirely convinced that that's going to happen. There's one or two who could be more average, if you like. I mean, everyone talks about the magic 40 points in the Premier League, just like they talk about the magic 50 in the Championship, League 1 and League 2. As kind of like a benchmark. It doesn't guarantee survival, but it's your primary target. That's the target for every team. 40 points in the Premier League target for every single team. That's the first target. Obviously, the bigger teams obviously aim higher, but their very first target is hitting that 40-point mark, because then they know that they've got a pretty good chance of securing survival for another season. And then obviously 50 for the 3 divisions below. But anyway, I honestly don't think there's a chance whatsoever that all 3 survive. Partially because of the financial gulf and whatnot, but partially because the other 17 are too comfortable. So, we'll see. Moving on to crazy prediction number 2. Keith Andrews survives the whole season at Brentford as their first team head coach, manager, whatever you want to call it, at least. It ain't going to happen, is it? He's dirt average as a pundit and commentator, let alone as a... I mean, I don't know what he's like as a manager. I mean, he's never been a first choice manager, has he? He was most recently the set piece coach at Brentford. I don't even know if Andrews was that good at set pieces as a player. But the guy is way out of his depth. I can't stand him. He never ever had a nice thing to say about Leeds United. And some of the drivel that he actually came out with was pathetic. But it's got to be one of the most outlandish managerial appointments of the last couple of seasons in the Premier League, surely. Not just the fact that he's, the big point of it will be that he was a set-piece coach. But the biggest point for me is that he's completely unproven as a manager. And this is a club that, since they got promoted, have run very sensibly with getting a lot of players for good prices, and then, they've obviously sold some of them off for bigger prices, and have yet sustained themselves every season. They finished 10th last season, 56 points. Thomas Frank's obviously done a very good job, and again, he was appointed internally, if memory serves me right. I think he was like the assistant manager or a first team coach or something, and then got promoted to manager or head coach. But now he's gone off to Spurs. So Brentford have decided to promote internally again, but I think this is a terrible appointment. There may be things that Andrews has said in his interview, for example, or there might be things that people within the club know that people outside of the club don't know. It's like, how does Wayne Rooney keep getting managerial positions? Because he's been dirt awful at nearly every one of them. So, maybe this is a similar case with Keith Andrews. How the heck has he gotten himself a Premier League managerial / head coach position in his first ever first team head coach manager position role? I have no idea. The right thing to do as a newly appointed manager or head coach is to learn your trade in League 1 or League 2. And then build up to the Championship, and then bring yourself into the Premier League. I mean, we know that that's not always how it's done, and it doesn't guarantee that it makes them into a good manager by doing that. But the experience would be great for him. Andrews is massively in the deep end here, and if this appointment had been made 3 or 4 seasons ago, Keith Andrews would last all of about four games, because he'd lose the first 4 and then boom, he's gone. Right. But because the standard of the bottom 3 teams has been so poor for the last 2 seasons, Brentford probably think they can afford to allow Keith Andrews a season in charge, give him the experience he needs, and then they're in the hope that he becomes a good manager or head coach going into season 2. But I can't think of any other reason. Like, it's so bad. And even with how big the gulf might be between the bottom 3 and 17th, I still think there's a chance that Brentford could go down, especially if the club decides to keep Andrews for the whole season, regardless of what happens. Like, you wouldn't sacrifice being an established Premier League club, just to give someone a chance of being a manager, would you? Like, Brentford have kind of solidified their place over the last couple of seasons, so I don't know. I can't see it. Moving on to my third virtually impossible Premier League prediction. This one I think has a small possibility. This one is the most probable of the 5, I would say, and that is that Aston Villa and Newcastle will finish first and second once the season is complete, after those glorious 38 games have been played. Now, it could be Newcastle first and Aston Villa second, or it could be Aston Villa first and Newcastle second. It doesn't matter. Now, these two finished 5th and 6th, both on 66 points last season. But Liverpool won the league with 84, and people reckon that was a decanter, and that Liverpool probably should have finished on an even higher tally. I mean, they finished 10 points ahead of second. And then you've got 74, 71, 69, and then 66 for both Newcastle and Villa, with Forest on 65 and Brighton on 61. So that kind of concludes your top 8 of 60 points plus. But I mean, could Villa and Newcastle get ahead of the current so-called Big 4? Could they? I mean, Newcastle's got all the money under the sun with their ownership, and both them and Aston Villa have been, pretty well run for the last couple of seasons. They're both sizable clubs. They're both very established in the Premier League. I think they've both just had 1 relegation each, haven't they, since the Premier League were formed, and they weren't out of it very long either, if memory serves me right. Could be wrong on those facts, but yeah. So could Aston Villa and Newcastle United finish in the top 2 this season? Can they break this monotony that the top 4 currently have? I mean, Chelsea in recent seasons, apart from last season, were a bit dodgy, weren't they? Man City could still... Isn't the 100-odd charges still a thing? Possibly? Arsenal need a striker. And Liverpool, I guess they're the ones to beat, because Slot came in as manager and obviously did well. So there'd be a lot for Newcastle and Villa to overcome. And they are kind of the next best of the bunch, if you like, when you look at the table. But I still think it's pretty unlikely that both of them finish ahead of those other four. I mean, maybe both of them finish in the top four. But can they finish first and second? As I say, out of these 5 predictions that I've come up with, I think that these are... this particular one is the most likely to have a chance of happening. As I say, like, they're both good teams. Both got, international standard players, you know what I mean? Like, these two teams are no slouches. You only have to look at the success of last season. Villa had a very good Champions League run, and Newcastle won a cup, didn't they? So, it's like they're both on the up. The question is how much on the up. And for me, I would say it's for those two to finish as the top two this next coming season in either order. Don't know. I would say unlikely, but out of all 5 of these predictions, this one has the most legs to it, if anything. So we'll see. Let's have a look at prediction number 4 out of 5. Again, I don't think that this one is as unlikely as the others, and I will just adjust that. I do apologise. I wonder why this one was wider than the others. That's very weird. Because I'd kind of looked at them all at the start before going live, and they were all fine. So that was a bit weird. Yeah, there we go. Apologies for that. So, Everton score more points away from home than at home this next coming season. They're about to embark on a nice brand new big swanky stadium. And we've seen what can happen when a team moves into a new stadium, having been in their previous stadium for years and years and years and years and years. They struggle to adapt. So, on the basis that most teams tend to get more points at home than they do away, could it be possible that Everton actually score more points away from home than at home this season? Is it that outlandish? As I say, it can take teams a long time to adapt to new stadiums, especially ones that are bigger and swankier than the one they were in before. And Goodison Park's no small stadium, it's about 40,000. If memory serves me right, about 39, 40. Similar to Ellen Road, if I remember. So, Everton moving into this big new swanky stadium, will they fill it? Will the atmosphere be a good one? Will the players adapt to everything that's new about it? I mean, at the end of the day, it's still a big patch of grass with some white lines on it and a couple of goals and 4 corner flags. In theory, it shouldn't matter, should it? But it always matters, doesn't it? It obviously matters. So, can Everton adapt quickly? Everton actually play against Leeds in the first game of the season. So it could be an interesting one, that. I think it'd be a very difficult test for Leeds going up against Everton. Moyes is he's got a shed load of experience at this level now, hasn't he, as a manager? And so much of it at Everton. So if Everton wanted someone that was going to steady the ship and keep things floating nicely for him, he's the one they want. Might not be the prettiest of football, but at the end of the day, he gets the job done, doesn't he? Everton got 13th last season, but Moyes wasn't there the entire season, if I remember. I think he came in part way through. but he basically stopped them getting relegated or even finishing in 16th or 17th because he got him sorted, didn't he? Only a -2 goal difference as well. For a team finishing 13th, 48 points, which in a normal season would be 8 points clear of the relegation zone there or thereabouts. So yeah, I don't know. I think that one might actually be possible. I don't know whether Everton adapt to their new stadium straight away or not, but we shall see. And now, finally, my personal favourite. Surely this one doesn't happen, does it? But if it does, I am going to celebrate like crazy. Check this one out, folks. This one is the most controversial of the bunch, and I love it. Manchester United will be relegated this season. Oh, God. I never thought that I would say this in a prediction. Like, my hatred for the Red Devils is absolutely through the roof. Cannot stand them. Can never have stood them at any point in time in my life, ever. And I don't care how immature I come across right now. I can't stand them. They are the footballing definition of pure evil. And quite frankly, just bleh. Anyway, point being, if I just push my personal opinion to the side just a little, last season Manchester United finished in 15th place, which has got to be one of their worst seasons since the Premier League was formed. It's got to be, hasn't it? They finished on a -10 goal difference, a mere 42 points, which in normal seasons, before the last two that have gone by, would have scraped them survival by about 1 win's worth. All they could muster was 11 wins and 9 draws, scoring 44 goals, but with a pitiful defence, conceding 54 in 38 games. For a club the size of Manchester United, and I hate saying this, I absolutely despise saying this, but for a club of that size, they were part of the Big Six, or as the Rich Six, as I used to call them. And the Rich Six doesn't exist anymore, because it involved Man United and Tottenham Hotspur, who last season were absolutely diabolical for clubs of their standard, or the standard that they believe they should be at. So on the basis of how bad Manchester United were last season, when you consider that they signed Amorim as their new manager, a guy who had just been extremely successful in the Portuguese top division, partially in thanks to former Coventry City striker Victor Gyökeres. Now, I can't believe that Man United didn't try and get Gyökeres at the first available opportunity. Whatever the first transfer window was for Amorim, that surely had to be his priority. Gyökeres has developed himself way beyond the Championship striker that he was a few seasons ago. So surely that would have been the prime target. But they didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't get him. I believe there's rumours going around that they're trying to get him this time, but they're also trying to get him Mbeumo from Brentford, aren't they? Now that's another thing as well. Like, as well as the whole Keith Andrews thing, if they lose Mbeumo as well, if he hasn't already gone, oof. Like, Brentford could be really bad this season, like, based on that. But in terms of this particular prediction, could Manchester United be relegated this season? If Leeds get their act together, or Burnley or Sunderland for that matter, and if any of them can break this horrible trend of the three going up, coming straight back down again, you've then got to look at the likes of, and you could even include Tottenham here, because Tottenham were terrible, but they have possibly rectified the situation by bringing in Thomas Frank. So I think a lot of people are expecting Tottenham to at least be top half going into this next season. But it is questionable as to what Frank can do with the bigger resources. But with how good he was on slightly less resources, you'd expect Frank to, for their sake at least, that he can adapt quickly. But you've got to look at the likes of Tottenham, Wolverhampton Wanderers, West Ham United, Everton, Crystal Palace, Fulham, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, Nottingham Forest. That's all of them from 17th up to 7th. And there's every possibility that any of those, could possibly have a duff season. But on the flip side of that, could it be even worse than just being a dirt average duff season for Manchester United? If one of those three newly promoted teams does well, could they finally be relegated? Telling you, as almost impossible as this is, because if they get in a tight spot, they can just go into one of the transfer windows and buy a whole bunch of new world star players, can't they? But if those big flashy new players don't end up hitting the ground running straight away, could Manchester United get relegated this season? Where are they going to get any confidence from? Based on what's just gone on this last season, they're not going to have any confidence, are they? This is a club that's used to finishing in the top 6 virtually every season, and they were absolutely nowhere bloody near it, not by a long shot. So, I ask this question to all of you folks: is there any possibility that Manchester United will be relegated this season? I personally hope so, because it's what they deserve, in my opinion. They went for so many seasons cheating the bloody way through to what they got. I mean, personally, I'd love it for both them and Liverpool, and Chelsea and Tottenham. I'd love it if all 4 of those got relegated over the next 2 seasons. I just can't stand any of those 4. I don't have any real issue with Arsenal or Man City. I think Arsenal's been a good team, for a long time in the Premier League. Man City, my only gripe is that basically they've had all the money under the sun and they've been able to spend it and buy a whole load of fantastic players, and get an extremely talented manager. But again, Guardiola's unproven at lower level. How good would he be with a club that doesn't have resources? Makes you wonder. but with a club that does have all the money, hell yeah, the guy knows what he's doing. So there you have it, folks. 5 almost impossible Premier League predictions. Could any of these 5 things occur this season? We're going to have to just wait and find out. But a big thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed that one. As I say, it was just a little bit of fun. Take it with a truck full of salt, right? I genuinely don't think that any of these things are going to happen. As I say, heart above head, Leeds might just survive the draw. The other 2, I'm not so convinced. But yeah, as far as everything else, and as I say, Villa and Newcastle, maybe if they get their recruitment right. Hard to tell, isn't it? But otherwise, I think the others are. I genuinely think Keith Andrews doesn't survive the season. I think he's getting sacked. If Man United get relegated, I mean, I'll love it. Even if they drag Leeds down with them, like I'd just love to see that club go down, just to see what kind of effect it would have on them. How would they survive going forward? Going into the Championship. I mean, they'd absolutely roast the Championship, wouldn't they? Like they'd probably go the whole season unbeaten or whatever. But again, would they be able to afford, based on PSR rules and the restrictions, would they be able to kind of stick to the rules, and would players want to actually stick there in the 2nd division of English football? I don't know. I personally don't think they would. I think they would. I think a player would much rather go to a mid-table Premier League team than play for Man United in the Championship. Personally, just because A, there's more wages available, and B, the chance to play in the Premier League. I don't know. So there we have it, folks. Absolutely weird and wacky and wonderful predictions, of which I don't think any of them are happening, but you never can tell. 90 minutes every week, big field of grass with a few white lines on it. Both teams have 11 players each, with a handful of substitutes. Let's see. Let us see. But yeah, hope you enjoyed that one. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you think any of these predictions could actually come to fruition? Could they? Really? I don't know. Looking forward to it. I'm a bit worried about my team. I think Leeds may struggle. But it's a whole new season, isn't it? Things change. Nobody expected Chelsea to finish in middle at bottom half or finish in bottom half a couple of seasons ago, but they did do. Granted, they've recovered since. But you never can tell. Club name alone won't guarantee you success. And that is a fact. Look at how well some of these others are doing. Your Brightons, your Bournemouths, your Brentfords, your Fulhams. Look how well they've done in recent seasons. Yeah. Yep. Club size alone does not guarantee success. So, with that in mind, folks, as I say, do please give the video a like. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Do please put your opinions on these predictions in the comments down below. As I say, bit of fun. Don't be offended by it. Yeah, as I say, let's see what happens. It's going to be an interesting season. In the meantime, enjoy the rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video or the next stream. Bye for now.